All right, here we go. So I'm going to share my screen. So again, just like to thank all of you for joining us today. My goal as the program manager for transformational learning is try to hold a monthly webinar with different parts to hear from those who have already experienced this journey of transformational learning, to hear from them, and then to be able to just share and grow and network and try to accomplish everyone's needs and goals and desires out of what transformational learning can provide for each district. So here is part one of our spring series, and we're going today be learning from those who are already along the journey of transformational learning. So as a quick review of what is transformational learning, when you hear from different districts today, you'll see that transformational learning can be a variety of things. And one thing that I think is very unique and intentional about this bill is that it provided flexibility for districts to define transformational learning for what meets the needs of their students and their staff. So in House Bill 351, you will find that transformational learning is a flexible system of people-centered learning that is designed to develop the full educational potential of each student. So as we dive into that and look deeper as to what that possibly means, part of it is customizing education to address each pupil's strengths, needs, and interests. And again, you'll hear different stories about how different districts are doing that around the state of Montana. Really providing choice for student learning instead of this is the scripted curriculum and this is what all students need to access at the same pace, at the same place, and at the same time. Transformational learning includes continued focus on students' proficiency over content. Again, that provides flexibility for student learners, different types of assessment, different types of data collection that meets the needs of students and that they can demonstrate their proficiency instead of seat time. And that seat time is a large caveat to what transformational learning and funding is required to not include. Next piece of transformational learning, talk about actively engaging students in how they want to learn, what they want to learn, where they want to learn. When we hear from Great Falls, you'll hear about some very unique learning opportunities for students who aren't even physically in their school district building, actually overseas, that they're still able to access their district's content in order to learn and demonstrate proficiency and progress while chasing their own dreams of becoming professional ballerinas. So very incredible that the state of Montana is being able to offer that. I came from a school district that talked a lot about our goal is we wanted students to own their own learning. And so when you talk about students owning their own learning, I think that goes hand in hand with transformational learning, that students have a voice in what they want to learn, how they want to learn, and how they want to demonstrate their learning for others. And then that seat time piece, that in order to receive funding for transformational learning, seat time cannot be used or mandated as a measure of proficiency. That there are other ways for students to demonstrate their mastery of content and their progression through grades, courses, whatever that might be. And for transformational learning, seat time cannot be a measure of that. So that's a quick rundown of what transformational learning is. So first today, we are pleased to hear from Superintendent Nick Schumacher. He's out of Plevna Public Schools. Just a little background on Plevna. They applied in the first cycle. They were one of 7 districts to receive funding in that first year. And they're currently in their second year of transformational learning funding. And as they've been funded for 2 years, they have submitted 2 annual reports so far. And Rebecca, as we talk about the funding piece of it, we'll talk about annual reports near at the end so you can understand that piece of it. So without further ado, Nick, I will turn it over to you and let me know if I need to share my screen with you or if you're good the way it is.
Great. Well, thank you, Crystal. And I think we're good with whatever screen makes you most comfortable.
Okay.
Likely that's one that doesn't include my face. But that, looking at this in the second year of our transformational learning funding, and then the two annual reports. Really, those are things that I hadn't intended to touch on, but I guess I would like to briefly. This is actually our third year of using transformational learning or using the program. Really, the first year, we started doing this before the House bill or before the Representative uh, Lou Jones bill went through. Um, so we were doing it without the funding for it, and really we used that first year to work out the kinks. The second year was very, very successful. We had 64% of our student body, so about 2/3 of our student body, use the transformational learning program. And of those, 91% of those students that used the program were successful with the program. So we were ecstatic with those numbers. The way our transformational learning program looks was the very first bullet point on the previous slide. And we provide the opportunity for our students to show mastery of content in alternate ways. And that's really been the focus of what we do for our transformational learning program. In the 1920 school year, we were able to have kids that would use study hall time that would leave the general ed classroom, and they were able to go to the transformational learning classroom, was set up as its own classroom. And there we would have second grade students working on reading, and senior students that were putting together research on bovine semen. And they were doing it in the same classroom at the same time, facilitated by the same teacher. It was very successful, and we put out some pretty amazing products by doing that. However, this school year, given our cohort model and simply trying to keep the doors open, we haven't had the ability to let those second grade kids work in the same room as the 10th graders, and our numbers have dropped way off. Teachers are keeping the students in their classrooms, and really, and we reported this, that this year about 10% of our student body are using the program. We expect once our students are able to become more mobile next year and move about the building a little more, that we'll be able to get back in those collaborative groups, and just be able to get the program back on track. A couple of pitfalls, things that we spent the first year really going through, that districts that are new to transformational learning, I would caution you against. I really wish, instead of trying to implement in that first year prior to the funding, that we would have taken that first year to really work on our strategic plan, to hone that in before we started implementing anything. One of the biggest issues that we found was we didn't have time or resources dedicated for teacher collaboration. So we would have a sophomore biology student that would show up to work on some cell division project, and the transformational learning teacher wasn't on board with what the objectives were or what the standards were that the student needed to meet. We have since implemented a PLC program, and that PLC program is solely for those sort of discussions. And that's something that I wish we would have done ahead of time. Another thing I wish we would have done better was to be more intentional about the individual teachers that were assigned to the transformational learning piece. We had some of our teachers were very, very excited about the opportunity to work in that program. Others were not. And honestly, we really saw the difference in what the kids were able to produce, given the enthusiasm of the transformational learning teacher that was involved. So those are really just some of the things that we would have done differently if we were able to do this over again. But it's been a wonderful, wonderful program for our kids. A lot of our teachers have grown as professionals being part of this. And really, our objective was find a way to make sure we're meeting the needs of all of the kids, and the flexibility afforded to us through this transformational learning program uh, gives us that. We feel we've been very successful in making sure that all of those kids have the same have and not an equal, but an equitable learning opportunity.
Nick, thanks for sharing Plevna's story with us. I think it's really important to address what we would have done if we could do it again, especially as we have new districts coming to join us in all stages, regardless if they're thinking about applying. I know in Micah's situation that Alberton has applied and they're waiting to get funded. So just being able to hear, districts kind of ahead of that journey, what that looks like and what some things to pay attention to is really important. So thanks for sharing that with us. Are there any folks on the call who might have questions or just things that they're wondering that Nick could possibly share with us before he leaves us this morning? All right. Well, it doesn't sound like it. Nick, do you mind if I share? I'll send out an email and I'll share your contact information if other folks wish to reach out to you who might see this at a later time.
Well, absolutely, Chris. Please include that. I'd love to talk about what we're doing, and if there's any way I can help someone else, that's how we make this whole system better.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Safe travels to Miles City today.
Hey, thank you, Crystal.
All right.
Take care.
Yep, you too. So next we have Assistant Superintendent Don Chrisman from Lockwood Public Schools. A little background information about Lockwood. They again applied in the first cycle, similar to Plevna. The allocated funds ran out prior to them receiving funding for their district, and so they spent 1 year on the notorious wait list, as we call it. However, this year they're currently in their first year of transformational funding. Which means that they have submitted their first annual report in January of 2021. And so without further ado, Don, we would love to hear from you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I have to concur with what Nick said about scaling back and planning, because I was ready to hit the ground running and I thought everybody would be right there with me. And we had this beautiful rubric and everything, and then we ended up with 36 new staff members this year. So there are things that you really have to scale back and say, where are we at? So although our focus was on continuing the gifted and talented programming and our life skills programming, or what we call our ABA, where we have behavioral students who are highly functioning and highly gifted that just don't get access to that stuff. We focused on those groups to continue on with the programming in place. But currently we have about 50 staff members who are going through what we call our better lessons, which is our instructional coaching. How do you get from doing standard grading to going to proficiency, and how do you do that comfortably? Because that has been a philosophical mindset that is difficult, especially 6th through 10th grade, where it was, well, it's 70%, so that must be proficient. We're trying to separate that out. So just getting those philosophical ideals out of the way, everybody here is on the same page. It's just working on what proficiency truly means. So this year, and then of course with COVID, again, what Nick said, our high school students were going to be trained to be tutors in our lower grades, and we can't mix that. We just, today is our first day back in our green plan where 6th through 10th grade kids are now on campus 4 days a week. K through 5 starts, or 1st through 5th starts on the March 8th. So getting to that point alone for me is transformational. So it's been a lot of planning with kids here 1 day a week or 2 days a week with a brand new high school that just opened in August. So we have a lot of things that we're working on, but we're moving everybody towards that vision of what we want it to look like. Next year, this will look completely different. We have some exciting developments on our campus. Potentially, there will be a full-time healthcare clinic here on campus. We can really start to look at kids and career pathways. We're developing our CTE programming. As all those things mesh, the transformational learning part, once teachers are all on the same page, is going to be huge. But we're backing it up to where people truly understand what it means to guide students. We also are lucky because we have the reading grant, the MCLSDP, which helped to get instructional coaching right here on campus. We have professional consultants coming in, observing teachers real time while they're teaching. And this has gone on even with just kids here 1 day, 2 days a week. So they're getting feedback immediately on what is recommended on what we're doing in class. So there's things that are all working together, but until we are green and everything settles down, I don't know how that would look full time until we actually get back there. Like I said, I'm excited today just to see the buses pulling up, kids getting off the bus, and they're here all day. We don't have that chaos that kind of came with trying to have hybrid models. We did, in the meantime, set up one-to-one digital components for every kid K through 8. So all 1,400 of our students, Chromebooks are available for them to take home and bring back to school. And I thought that was key for leveling the playing field, especially when you're doing transformational learning programming. Kids that don't have access to a digital component can't keep up on the things the teacher's doing, sending out videos, sending out instructional supports. So we have that in place now, which was a big help. Some of the other things we're looking at now is to look at all the data we have. We have benchmarking where students are actually keeping track of their benchmarking from K through 10. So we have a monthly benchmarking for students in tier 2 and tier 3. They have to know where they are in order to know where they're going. So that was a big component this year. That will continue as we go through. Let me just review real quick. Like I said, the proficiency measures, all of our special education staff develop P scales that are commensurate with the regular education students. So kids are not getting a break, but it's actually adjusted to where their learning levels are. So any student who wants to can be part of a transformational learning component. We will continue to add to this as we go, but like I said, this year is truly a transitional period for the district as we train 36 new staff. We'll be adding another high school grade next year, which is probably another 11 staff members, plus any turnover we see. So I don't ever see that training and getting people up to speed ever stopping. But we're also doing administrative training to go with this so that our mindsets are changed, because a lot of people do struggle with not having ABCD. And I mean, until everybody's on that page of what transformational looks like, it's a difficult thing to take out there and roll out. So that is where we are at. We've had a successful first year, and I'm excited to see where the second year takes us.
Great, thank you, Don. Does anyone have questions that they would like to address with Don? Seeing that there are none, oh, someone have? Yeah, seeing that there are none, Don, I think, you know, when you talk about that journey, that everyone has this idea of what it looks like and how it looks like to them, but especially in your case where you have so many staff members and a large student population, that being able to not only convey that message, but then take what everyone else's opinion of transformational learning and try to make it a model that's, I don't want to say blanketed, but that's functional for such a large school district has seemed to be a challenge for several districts. So,
and I had to take my passion. I had to take my passion for this and scale it back, because I'm ready for this. But that doesn't mean everybody else is. So we had to step back and say, you know what, it's a wonderful thing, but it's not fair to assume that everybody's at the same place yet. So it's been kind of nice this year to have a neutral person in there saying, here's how you get there. These coaches that we have through Better Lessons are amazing, but it's not me telling somebody how to do it. They're getting there through their own journey this year, which makes it so much easier when we do start to roll out those bigger pictures.
Absolutely. Well, Don, again, thank you. And I hope you're okay if I share your contact information in future emails for folks to reach out to you.
Please do.
Awesome, wonderful. So next we have Micah. Micah, I was looking up your contact information this morning, and it says proud PK through 12 principal. And so as
Yep.
conversations that I've had with Micah, I think that is, she exudes that proudness of what her role is and how she's able to assist and help students. So Alberton is in their second year. They applied in the second year of the funding window. They're currently on their first year of the wait list. They are projected to be funded in fiscal year 23. So, as we hear from Nick and we hear from Don about, they applied and they were funded relatively quickly. Micah and her district has had some time to kind of hash over their plans and create a plan and readjust their plan. And so it'll be fun to hear kind of from a different viewpoint. One caveat that I want to share with you that in the bill funding, if a full year has passed from the initial application piece, districts have to resubmit their application to hold their current place on the wait list. And so for fiscal year 22, next year, Micah's district, Alberton, will resubmit their application and then their transformational learning plan as it's found in their strategic plan. So that's a little different as we hear from Micah today, but we'll talk about that in future webinars as we get closer to the process. So Micah, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Can you please allow me to share my screen?
I sure will.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great, I'm gonna go ahead and get my content up so folks can follow along with me. I prepped for this a little bit differently, but this is good, I'm happy. Yes, all right. So as you can see here, I just kind of set up, Nick and Don really left some really good notes in regards to being sure that first and foremost, everybody's on the same page. Developing the why as to why we have to really look at this transformational learning, look at personalized learning was the most important thing that we've been working on this entire year. That way, when teachers give a try on a new angle of how we educate our children and our learners, they can't fall back to what they're used to of their traditional instructions, but the why stops them and they keep trying again, right? That resilience and that perseverance and that grit to try a different way to educate. We looked at transformational learning with that personalized learning piece, really focusing on the future of work. So we utilized, if you're not familiar with the innovation playlist, Ted Dintersmith's book, What School Could Be, I highly recommend you take a look at that website. It discussed how Amazon and Google and Apple, they're looking for innovators, right? Low skill jobs aren't going to be something that's available in the future for our work. And students need to gain that competency in foundational skills like collaboration, problem solving, giving criticism, taking criticism. So we totally stepped back as an entire district and said, what are we doing that needs to be transformed? Why are we asking questions that kids can Google in their cell phone in their pocket? Why are we giving them worksheets that we know isn't working? So we totally threw out grade levels at the elementary. Students are no longer grouped together on their manufactured date. We put them in multi-age classrooms based on where their social emotional maturity is, where their academic skills are. There's not a low group, high group, because that would be inappropriate. Instead, we differentiate within the classroom. We also got rid of traditional grades at the elementary, so there's no longer an A, B, C, or D. They are all based on the standards-based grading or mastery or competency-based grading, whatever you want to call those things. We have a Genius Hour that we do with all of our students, which is off of Google's Genius Hour. If you're familiar, again, if not, I would recommend that you Google that and take a look. We have a What I Need period where all the students go for reading intervention at their specific level. They move throughout the classroom, but I'm digressing. I just wanted to get out there what we took transformational learning like. We took it like project-based learning, right? Giving the students learning by doing instead of learn, 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 regurgitate. So the first thing we did is we assembled what we called a redesign team. That's kind of what you see up here on my screen. It says the redesign team. That includes students, teachers, parents, board members, professional consultants, thought leaders. I work with Beyond the Chalk, Jeff Cruz and Dean Phillips, and we're partnered with the Giggle Box. This is all the current redesign team members, as you can see I have on the board there. The reason that we meet consistently in a public forum, that way all the board members that want to attend can attend, and we're not held back on having a different kind of lineup, right, when it comes to having those public meetings. So there's the redesign team members. I can go into that more, but I'm being cognizant of my time, so I'll go back to this other screen. We meet on a monthly basis. We really have focused on introducing the why. We looked at the future work. We screened the movie Most Likely to Succeed, which is High Tech High in California, which is a project-based learning campus. They have 14 different schools there in California. And we've now moved into trying to make the profile of a 24-year-old graduate, which I'll go to that now. Because again, I have a timer on this side. I know how long I can talk about this stuff. What we did this year is we gained perspectives. We did a Mentimeter. You can see it on your screen there. There was the question to rank those, a great life is determined by those different factors. We did one for the community, we did one for the students, and we did a separate one for staff so we could compare what the different groups and stakeholders of our education felt like. But this really did reiterated and emphasized the importance of the why. As you can see there, I'm sure I can zoom in for you even. Let me give that a shot. Our number one answer, and this was on the Guardian one, was happiness and life satisfaction, while number 8, right, was post-secondary certification. So the entire purpose again was to reimagine what is our emphasis of education now? What is the purpose of having learners in our school? And then you can see this is also where we went and we did the 5 outcomes of a successful 24-year-old, and that we're looking at 24-year-olds. The reason why we chose that is because you wouldn't buy a brand new car, drive 3 blocks and it break down on you. That's not significant to look at that car. So we look at a 24-year-old because an 18-year-old is one thing to graduate. Where are they when they're 24, the Alberton graduate? So we are doing a new profile of the graduates. I'm shadowing students at the school. Teachers are getting to shadow students at the school to really get an idea of what their day looks like. You can see on the top of that document there that we did a class wish list. So in other words, we asked all the students to tell us if they could make up any class, what would it be? So right now we're just gathering information and showing more and more data, specifically why we need to change how we're educating students. We're working, as you can see, I have coming to a school near you. We're doing teacher passion projects and we're funding their extracurriculars that they want to do. We're going to dive more into our CTE and then professional development lore. We're very lucky to have worked with ESJAC, and that's Kevin Honeycutt and his crew. They are helping us with project-based learning along with High Tech High and trauma responsive strategies, student portfolio development, and restorative justice practices. Again, I see that I've already talked 6 minutes, so I'm just going to share it. If you scan that into your phone, you just have to put any iPhone up or QR scanner. That will automatically allow you to get the contact information to get a hold of me as my Twitter handle, my cell phone, and my Facebook page, and the my email. I'd be more than happy. I think our next biggest step, as I'm wrapping up in my last 30 seconds here, is that I would like to see us collaborate more. I'm glad that they're hosting these monthly meetings, but I think we need to think more, how do we create experts in our state that can do these things? Like I know they're reaching out to Better Lessons, that's outside of Montana. What can we start to do to develop our own expertise in the state and share with each other? I think it'd be easier on all of our wallets, and it would take and stretch this funding even further and make it more impactful. So I invite you to get my information. Did I leave that up long enough?
No.
No, let me put it back up. My apologies. Oops. And then of course I'm scanning all over the place. It'll take just a second. I have too many things on my computer. Here we go. Go ahead and just scan that with your camera app. If you have an iPhone, it's automatically built into your camera app. Crystal's, I hit my 7-minute mark. I'm being quiet
right,
now, but if
no,
anybody has questions, I'm happy to elaborate. I know I kind of zoomed through those real quick.
That's awesome. So as we look to finish up with Micah, like I said, just talking to her, so many different resources and networks that she has shared with me about being able to implement transformational learning. And I think that's super valuable, but also the fact that they're really focused on the data collection, right? So as they're on this journey of, we're going to implement this in 2 years, how can we start to implement it without funding, which I think Nick and Don both talked about. You know, there's ways to implement transformational learning while you're on that wait list. But then also,
I'm sorry, Crystal, is my screen still sharing?
it is, yep.
Okay, I was just letting you see that's kind of one of the timelines that we've created.
Right.
Right.
Did you want to go to that timeline, or are you?
Oh no, it's okay. I was just pulling it up while you were talking so you could see. That was the other thing I had prepped for today, so you guys could see.
Sure. Yeah, if you want
where I was.
to put that up there and kind of show what your district's timeline looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me pull it up again. So it shows this is that year 1, again, foundational phase. Obviously, we, as Crystal mentioned, we're being pushed back to fiscal year 2023. However, we're really looking at ESSER funds as being an opportunity to keep going with the momentum. And in reality, it's just a matter of professional development as much as possible and spending back at the teachers, right, and enriching the tools that they have to do this. But you can see that the foundational year is entirely set on setting the vision, understanding our roles and responsibilities, having that shared vision, defining those principles, researching them. And you'll see there's a foundational phase and an action phase with every year. And I'm super happy, again, to go through details with any other district that might want to collaborate and be a part of the same kind of process we are. But you can see I'm only briefly showing you, but it's specifically showing how teachers will get a menu of PD options in their second year.
Micah,
Where,
not to interrupt you, sorry, we're still on the Scan Me page, so I think it's a different screen that you're sharing.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, I was thinking I was being all cool. 1 second. Don't look at the Scan Me page anymore. My apologies. Are you looking at my screen now, I take it?
Yeah, it says you're sharing your screen. We can see your desktop with your apps there. Yep.
There we go. This is what I was referring to. I'm sorry. This is that foundational phase. Each year we have written out the foundational phase and the action phase. And like I was stating out loud, hoping that you were following along, my apologies, was setting that vision and sharing that vision, right? And then we have all the years planned out. And like I said, in year 2, what's really going to be different is that teachers will get to utilize, they'll get to pick, right? There's going to be a menu of professional development options towards that collective goal of transformational learning. But perhaps a teacher wants to take the PDL design camp. Perhaps they want to learn how to go into conscious discipline more and other trauma responsive strategies. So each year has that action phase and then the process phase, right? So again, I'm happy to share those things. I know I can talk way too much, so I will stop there.
Okay, that's great.
I said that twice now already. My apologies.
So like I was saying, about the data collection. So as districts look at, maybe we'll apply in fiscal year 23. I think that big piece of that is data, right? So what do our stakeholders and the folks that we're serving, what do they want to see when we talk about transformational learning? And then Micah, just from what you shared with that timeline, being able to get teachers on board, and Don mentioned that as well, that we have our vision as school leaders about what transformational learning is going to look like and what our programs are going to be and how we're going to facilitate this to our students. But it's really those teachers because they're the true facilitators. And I know
And your community. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, that having having students and the community and the staff members meeting on a monthly basis outside of school hours just to talk through some of these ideas through that redesign team. We offer them, you know, they can join us Google Meet, but they can also be in person. Those have been one of the most crucial points of getting the momentum going and keeping it going on a bigger scale.
And yeah, and giving them a voice. Mike and I talked about this, that in my journey of transforming my classroom and then transforming the middle school that I was working in, you know, the majority of the staff was on board, and then the students became on board, but you have that parent group that, well, this isn't how I learned, so I don't understand, and I don't understand the vision. And so without getting parents on board, it seemed like we constantly had, I don't know if backlash might be a too severe term, but we just didn't have buy-in from our community at times, until we figured out that piece of how can we give our community and our parents voice so they know that we're hearing them, and then we can meet on that common ground, instead of taking this new concept that's broader than broad can be and saying this is what your students are going to experience. You know, how do we create that network of supporters versus just inside the school walls. And I think when you look at community and parents and staff and teachers, and then you have people coming in who are, you know, saying and supporting the same things as district administrators who are trying to push teachers to this new level of teaching and learning. It's more than just applying for a grant and saying we're going to get funding and we're going to transform learning. There's so many pieces that are beyond getting money and putting it to use, you know, and I think that all of our experts here today have shared that same message in their own different ways in districts. So Micah, thank you for sharing. Anyone have comments or anything that they would like to ask Micah before we move on here and finish up? All right, well, Micah, I'm gonna, let's see. Can you guys now see my Great Falls screen?
No, we can't.
You can't? Okay. Let me see here. See if I can take back my controls. It's easy to give them. It's harder to harder to take them back sometimes.
I could see if I could figure it out. I don't know.
Oh, here we go.
You got it?
Yep, I'm good. I thought it was. Where's my? I've done this. Oh, here we go. All right, now can you see the Great Falls? Okay. So Heather Hoyer has joined me a couple different times to share what's happening in Great Falls. So instead of asking her to join us here again, I've used one of her recordings. So it's brief, but again, I want you to see what is possible from a different district. So we're going to
Good
share
afternoon
this.
from Great Falls Public Schools. Great Falls Public Schools is home to 3 high school programs, 2 comprehensive high schools, and 1 attendance center that truly defines transformational learning. All 3 programs are grounded in relationships with each other and with the parents and students that they serve. These cooperative relationships drive how we serve students as they learn and support our teachers as they learn to teach differently. Our goals for House Bill 351 this year are linked directly to our experiences and to the experiences of the students we serve, and are embedded in the stories that we hear every day. They include dual credit opportunities, where Great Falls Public Schools opened up dual credit opportunities to classes not traditionally accepted for credit, allowing students to find their passion and progress towards their post-high school goals. Another goal was job shadows, internships, and pre-apprenticeships, where this year we expanded these opportunities in 17 pathways, including virtual options, and everything from nursing to law enforcement, to family consumer sciences and culinary arts, to industrial technology. Finally, innovation was our last goal, from Paris Gibson Education Center, which defines transformational learning, to serving our students in our comprehensive high schools having unique experiences. We have learned together that we thrive when our students do. COVID-19 has given us additional challenges, like with every public school in the state of Montana. We have learned to offer job shadows, pre-apprenticeships, and internships in a variety of ways, including non-traditional hours, in the evenings and the weekends and the summertime. Transformational learning has helped support our teachers as they support these students having these experiences. We have also learned that virtual experiences and virtual education is a new and important concept within public education that will not be going away, we don't feel. The range of students' needs have changed, and transformational learning allows us to think differently in a world where change is the new normal. House Bill 351 has given us license and support to individualize like we have never been able to individualize before. We want to thank you for your support of our students, our families, and our teachers as we move forward towards their goals and their passions. If you want to learn more about how Great Falls innovates, you can contact Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Schools, Heather Hoyer, at 406-268-6008. Thank you.
So again, we hear the importance of relationships, right? How does the community support our students instead of just the superintendent or just the principal? You know, the educational leaders that we have in our schools are so important, but it's that storytelling piece. And so Heather again touches on the building of the relationship, so everyone is invested in student learning. I think she also kind of leans towards sharing the grant opportunity for Montana Advanced Opportunities. So if there are districts out there who have not looked at the Montana Advanced Opportunities grant, very similar in the application process, but it's additional funding to help help pay out-of-pocket costs for dual enrollment, for job shadowing opportunities, for internships, certifications. So that is another piece, and we'll talk about that in another day, but the Montana Advanced Opportunities grant could be another additional funding source for districts who are looking to transform and personalize and individualize learning for districts. And just briefly talking about that, every district on the wait list for Montana Advanced Opportunities will be funded in this upcoming fiscal year. So it's not like transformational learning where you're going to be put on a wait list. So that's one additional incentive to look to apply for that. And it's permanent funding, where transformational learning is only a funding for 4 years. So Heather has provided her contact information, a great resource similar to Plevna. They have been funded for 2 years now, so they've been along this journey from the very beginning.
Good afternoon.
Oh. All right, so Rebecca, thanks for hanging with us, and hopefully this kind of begins a process of the funding for you. So the application window, the dates have not been set, and I know Lewistown, I know you guys have already applied and you're waiting to be funded, so this piece is irrelevant, but for districts who watch this in the future, the fiscal year 23 window has not been set, but traditionally it's open the first week in December and closes the second week in January. As Nick and I talked about, it's currently first come, first serve, but that process may change with the current legislative session, where it would become a lottery system for newly applying districts. The application requirements, the application itself is pretty straightforward and simple. You identify the FTE that will be directly associated with the implementation of your district's transformational learning program. For transformational learning, the district must have a board-approved definition of proficiency that does not require seat time, as all of our experts today have talked about how that looks different in their districts. And then the newest piece is providing a strategic plan, transformational learning plan, as it's found within the district strategic plan, so that there's some planning and an idea of what transformational looks like to different districts who are applying. And I will show you an application here shortly. Qualifying students are grades K through 12. The funding calculation is 50% of the prior year's quality educator payment. So currently we're waiting to get those final numbers for fiscal year 21 to send out to districts exactly what their funding is, but we've sent out some preliminary numbers based on the projected quality educator payment. And then that 50% of that payment is multiplied by the district's FTE, in which are helping to implement their district's transformational learning plan. 4 consecutive years of funding is how transformational learning is funded. So again, we see districts on all different spectrums of those 4 years. And then the funding ends in fiscal year 27. So as we look at districts applying for fiscal year 23 and 24, that would be the last year where districts would receive their full 4 years of funding. Districts may permissive levy upon qualification. And I know, Nick, that's another piece that we have proposed to possibly change, that once districts are qualified, they can permissive levy instead of actually having to be funded. And so Micah, when that information comes out, I will be sure to let you know if there's a change in that legislative description of the bill. And then, as we've talked about, districts are required to submit an annual report upon receiving funding to share their district's progress in carrying out of their plan. And again, as legislators have worked to write this bill and implement it and review it, I think it's really interesting the flexibility that's been provided for districts to do as they feel necessary for transformational learning. Districts might have their initial plan still not funded, their plan slightly changes. And then once they become funded, they might say, well, we need to tweak this and tweak this. So that annual report is where districts are sharing their different stories and their different changes to their initial transformational learning plan. And again, when we started this back in 2019, who knew of COVID, right? So that's just been a huge kind of thorn in the side of, I know of so many, but it's obviously at this smaller level has changed transformational learning plans and opportunities for students. So just understand that there's large amounts of flexibility within what districts intentionally plan, and then what actually happens as they implement their transformational learning plans. So here's some additional resources. I'm not going to take the time to go through them today as we don't have many folks with us, but here's a link to the fiscal year 22 application that districts have already submitted. The fiscal year 23 application will look different, slightly different, but I don't anticipate huge modifications. But just so you can see, if you're looking to apply, what an application looks like. I work with our IT department to update our transformational learning page through the OPI. And so there's new information up there coming shortly. So that would be an opportunity for districts at any place along the journey to look at. I am also starting our weekly articles again. So I'm looking nationwide, internationally, to find examples of transformational learning at Montana Advanced Opportunities and putting them on our website. So each Friday, I will post a thoughtful 3 with a link to an article, and then a little summary, a blurb of how it might be able to impact learning in your district. And then again, there's my contact information, my OPI email, and then my personal cell phone. So, you know, we talk about planning, we talk about relationships, we talk about networking, and so much more today. And all of those pieces are vital for creating a transformational learning plan and carrying it out and allowing our students to truly own their learning, making learning know and be what they want it to be. And I had a future principal, or a past principal, who always talked about, we're preparing students for jobs that we don't even know exist right now, and how difficult of a challenge that is. So I applaud our professionals who are with us today on their journeys and the things that they've shared with us, and continue to encourage districts to think beyond the box, right? So what are we going to do to prepare our students today for jobs that we don't even know exist, and what skills versus what knowledge do they need to have in order to carry out those jobs? So I will hang out here a little bit longer if individuals have questions, or if we want to start a dialogue, but Nick and Don and Micah, I just appreciate you guys taking the time today, sharing your expertise that is invaluable to districts who are trying to accomplish and learn from you. So thank you for your knowledge, and thank you for your time and your willingness to be adventuresome and try something new, and you know, take the bumps in the road as they come. But how exciting to hear from all three of your districts and know that great things are happening for your students. So thank you so much.
Great. No, thank you, Crystal. We appreciated the time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That was enjoyable.
All right, we'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good.
Crystal, I do have a question.
Yes, Rebecca.
Maybe I'm probably very confused, so bear with me, but you mentioned the advanced opportunity and then we have transformational learning.
Correct.
And so my question is we've got a letter saying, it's talking about transformational learning, saying it sounded like it was for 22-23, but then we got a letter for the quality, it says the advanced opportunities stuff that would be for fiscal year 22, I think. So I'm just a little confused about the two different kinds of funding, and if they are two separate programs with bills. I'm really just behind the 8 ball on it. And Tim is from Lewistown too. He's on here with us, but maybe he probably knows more than I do about it. But
great. I'm going to pause a recording here.